We are live.
That's
Pal and
right.
I, Wilson is restarting as we speak
And we're
because
talking weather as usual.
yeah, you got floods in
Yes.
New York City. So who knows what's going on with Wilson's internet down there. But
hmm
he was lagging and breaking up. So
But we
decided to
have
give
100
us
degrees in Portugal. So,
100 degrees.
hmm
Ain't that fun? 100 degrees. Whew. I do not like the heat very much. I'm one of those people who can deal with the cold better. Just throw a coat on. As long as I don't have to like drive somewhere in the snow and ice, that's no. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be commuting in through a snowstorm. That's
yeah. Yeah. I hate the rain more than the cold.
yeah. Well, it depends if I have an umbrella or not. How much
Oh,
I
no.
hate the rain is directly related to how much of it is hitting me in the head.
No, just the fact that it's around.
Good evening, Tit Goblin. How are you tonight?
What's the weather like in Newfoundland?
Newfoundland.
Comic Crack is also here. What's the weather
Comic
like in
Crack is
Winnipeg?
here. Good evening.
We are being invaded by Canada.
Woohoo! Oh Canada! Oh, that's all I know of their national anthem. It's "Oh Canada." That's the extent of it. I think
We
that's
can
their
talk about the
title.
we can talk about the War of 1812, America's only military defeat in its own territory.
hmm
You guys are not very proud of that, are you?
Well, if you want to talk about the War of 1812, uh, with all that military defeat, America still won, if you want to call it that. We slotted right
Right.
back into the British Empire.
hmm I was checking something the other day, and I noticed that like the first 10 or so American ambassadors to France
Uh,
were all presidents.
oh wow.
Yeah, because I was wondering how much
Commuting
did.
through the snow, love it.
Yeah, because I was thinking how much did the French Revolution influence the politics of the early United States,
Oh
and
yeah.
just having most of your presidents being ambassadors to France means, yeah, you
One of
you
the
guys are
centers of
very influenced.
civilization. Forgive me if I don't stand and applaud you all. I hate all weather. It's still warm here. As long as I don't have to turn on the heat, it's $1,400 to fill up an oil tank here. Ooh,
Yeah.
nice day here as well. We got rain. Wilson's not here yet because he was breaking up, so he's restarting. But there's flooding going on in New York City, and he was just saying each borough had its own problem going on today.
Mhm.
So
If the U.S. comics industry was anything like France, there would be there would have been a comic book about the War of 1812 on the stands in the last 10 years. No, I mean you can
probably in
find
2012.
probably, yeah,
That would
because
be
you,
a
you
good
you can
time.
you can find comic books about military history in the last 20 years made in France, and they're books about everything. I bought a book about the trip about Magellan, and in the same collection there's a book uh, about the about Charles Darwin's trip to the Galapagos Islands.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
I've read a couple volumes of some comic. I think it's French called like Wunderwaffel or something like that, and it's a alternate history. I don't think Germany won World War II, but they like sued for peace or something like this. Something happened where
mhm.
like the in the middle of World War II, Germany didn't lose. So
Yeah, there's
the
an alternate
story is
history book
actually
about.
about a German jet fighter,
Mhm,
like post-war. I haven't
mhm.
read that in a long time, but I forget that it was like Wunderwaffel or something.
Yeah, there's something there's an alternate history book about a German World War II type aviation right now. Volume 4, I think, was out. But, there's weird stuff. There's a book. So I have the first two books of a series about Renaissance painter Caravaggio. Right now, there's a series that just began about Salvador Dali,
Wow.
and now there's a new series starting about Arthur Rimbaud. Now, is this life that interesting?
And good evening, Mind the Comics.
No, but I mean, the other day I was saying that I don't think that American Splinter is that interesting, because it's just an average guy from Cleveland going around buying records. Uh,
Yeah, I was never that into American Splendor, but I got into it like in the later on, like when Dean Haspiel was drawing some of it. Like Dean Haspiel drew The Quitter, I think it was. And that one was actually pretty good. That was more of a life story of Harvey P. Carr
mhm,
rather than the sort of minutia of his day, which I
yeah,
gotta admit I never found that
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Because apart from because the French are doing books on everyone. A few years ago, there was a comic book about the life of Frida Kahlo, who uh,
Ah.
who uh, who who was the guy? The other guy wasn't Lenin from the Russian Revolution. The crazy one.
Oh, oh, the Mad Monk.
No, no, no. The other revolutionary, the one that escaped to Mexico because
Oh,
of
okay. I forget which. Oh, yeah. I know. I can't think of which one it is. One of those original Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky.
Trotsky. Yeah, Frida Kahlo was Trotsky's mistress or wife.
Oh,
So they did a comic book about her as well.
well, she was Diego Rivera's wife, wasn't she?
I don't know who Diego Rivera was.
He's a famous muralist, a
Mm,
famous Mexican muralist. I think he was married to Frida. Matter of fact, Diego Rivera was famous long before Frida Kahlo was. I
mhm,
think that's who she was married to.
mm.
I haven't looked in a while. Yeah, oh, Wunderwaffe is the imaginary German Air Force if World War II had lasted a few more years. Okay, that's the book I was thinking about. Wunderluftwaffe. Rivera's wife, yes, Diego Rivera. Okay, that was the. I mean, if this was the 70s, you would have not heard of Frida Kahlo and you would have heard of Diego Rivera.
Mm.
But Frida Kahlo's reputation has only grown over the decades, and his has kind of diminished, especially since he is now like considered Frida Rivera's husband, who wasn't a very good husband, kind of thing.
Mm.
But he did a lot of social realist murals. He was really famous in his lifetime. And he's still famous now, but I think Frida Kahlo is more famous now than Diego Rivera. Did your New York crew shop at the comic shop that closed recently? Did I don't think which one closed recently? Was it one of the Jim Hanleys? I think the Jim Hanleys in Manhattan closed. If we used to shop there um, when I was at Marvel all through the 90s, everyone went, "There's Wilson. How you doing, Wilson?"
I'm
Hey,
doing okay. Hopefully, this connection is better. If not,
mm,
there's not much I can do.
Yeah, you're sounding better already. We'll see how it holds up.
mm.
Okay.
Is your
Okay.
area flooding?
Luckily, where I am in the Bronx, we got a lot of water, but no floods in the immediate area. So where I am, I'm okay. But I've been seeing pictures and TikToks and images from the subway. I'm glad I did not go out today.
Yeah, Jim Hanley. I don't think you've been to Jim Hanley's universe in a while, right, Wilson? That the
No, I
Manhattan
have
one was
not.
closed, I think.
Yes, it closed this week. I think the last day might have been today. I was hoping to get out there just to go to the store, but once they moved to the location they're currently at, I kind of just stopped going there.
Right. They moved
It was
down because they used to be right near the World Trade Center, right? That's where they were all the years we were at Marvel. They were on like
they were by the Empire
33rd.
State Building, not the
Yeah,
World Trade
Empire State Building. Duh, mixing up my giant skyscrapers. Right by the Empire State Building.
Right. For a long time, they were across the street from the Empire State Building. Beautiful location, really
The
big
side
store.
street, not the main avenue, right?
Right, correct.
Okay.
And because of
33rd, was it?
this, I think so.
And then
Because
where did they move?
34th,
They moved east, right? They moved way east.
they moved way east to, well, after the Empire State Building one, they moved to a smaller, what I call kind of like a boutique shop
Mm-hmm.
that was a little bit to the east, but before Park Avenue. And then after that, they went past Park Avenue over to, I want to say, Second or Third Avenue. So they were in
Ah,
that area, kind of behind Marvel.
okay, yeah. All the way. For those of you who don't know, New York City, when you move from like, when you move avenues, that's a pretty long way. So what avenue is the Empire State on? Fifth, or are they further west? I don't even remember.
I want to say Fifth.
I want to say Fifth too, but but Jim Hanley's would be like between Fifth and Sixth. And then if they move like between Second and Third, that's a good half mile away.
Yeah.
Because I would say generally I walk pretty fast, and to walk a block in New York City takes me a minute, and I'm moving fast. So if I'm walking like 20 blocks, that's probably going to take me 20 minutes. Avenues are 3 or 4 blocks, maybe 5. I'm not even sure. But if you move like 3 avenues over, that's not 3 or 4 minutes.
Right.
Avenues are much wider than a wider space than a block is for the streets. So if I'm like going from 23rd Street to 24th Street, that's a minute. If I'm going from 2nd Avenue to 3rd Avenue, that's 5 minutes. So just moving, it doesn't sound far. Like they moved from between 5th and 6th to between 2nd and 3rd, but that can make you not. That can be like not on your path anymore, not
Ex-
on any route you take anymore. And so you're just not near Jim Hanley's ever.
Right. So the amount of time, like it was in a nice area. I've been there before. But again, it's one of those things where once it got to that smaller store, they had a lot of stuff packed in that small store, but I felt a little too cramped, and it was a bit out of the way. So that's kind of why I stopped going there anyway. Plus, I have stopped going to comic book shops
Right.
anyway. So when I started back up going to comic book shops, I picked Midtown only because I could take the subway right there, jump
Yep.
out, and then jump back into the subway and come right back. So it was
Yeah.
just quicker for me to just
Yeah.
stay
Right.
on that particular line, and it just happened to work out that way.
Location.
Exactly. So it worked out that way.
Yeah, Jim Hanley's used to be central to Marvel and DC all through the 90s. I'll tell that story as soon as Tit Goblin asks his question. Paulo, do you live within a city?
Yes, my city has a population of 90,000, and we are part of the Lisbon metropolitan area. Although if you're in a metropolitan area, you have agricultural land as well. So it's not the same. It's not urban sprawl like in the United States.
Mm-hmm. We don't have urban sprawl everywhere, though. We have urban sprawl mostly in the newer places, which is a lot of the United States. But like the New York City area doesn't really have the same urban sprawl. So now there's not tons of people here, and there's not that there's but it's like a different sort of thing because there's lots of little city like New York City has Yonkers around it, not to mention White Plains, Hoboken, Jersey City. So it's like cities all around New York. I mean, Hoboken and Jersey City are cities on their own right across the river from Manhattan. It's kind of like it's weird. But you get up near me and it's much more suburban, but it has also lots of growth over the last 30 years. So it's like there's just busy roads everywhere. Still some farmland, but not as much as there was when I was a kid. But Jim Hanley's universe used to be at sort of the center of the Marvel and DC world because of Jimmy Bucks. Jimmy Bucks was what they used to call it. I don't know if you were there for that period, Wilson.
I was there. They were also not the only comic shop to do that.
No, they weren't. But they were
They
were the main one.
Right. It was the before that because I used to when I was on the 9th floor.
Uh-huh.
We used to go to Cosmic Comics.
Cosmic Comics, yep.
And they did it there. And then we went to then somewhere along the line. Well, once I moved upstairs to 10, everyone was going to Jim Hanley's and they were doing it as well. If I was smart, I should have done them both.
What he means by it is in those days, at both Marvel and DC, you got every comic from Marvel and DC. Every comic, whatever, for every employee got every comic. So before Ike took over and cut down the amount of comics everyone got, you would get. So there would every week, everybody on staff would get a huge stack of comics, and some people just didn't want them. So what they'd do was they'd bring them to Jim Hanley's universe mostly, but sometimes Cosmic Comics, and they'd trade them in for credit. Jim Hanley's universe would give you like, I don't remember what it was, 30 or 40%.
I don't remember the
cover price in credit. So you would take and there would be people who would just collect other people's unwanted comics and bring them to Jim Hanley. So they get, there's a few people who like had a racket going.
Right, because it was like not everyone collected everything. That was the other thing too. I tend to keep most of my books, and whatever I didn't want, which was usually a stack like that big, maybe 10 books I didn't want, I wasn't collecting, so I would turn those in.
And also they would people at they would trade them. They would get like the expensive crap that Hanley's would never sell too. Like some people would get statues and expensive or whatever that Hanley's was happy to get rid of because they're making they're paying less for their because they're only giving out credit, not cash. But then it all came crashing down when it came crashing down because of DC. I think we've discussed this on here years ago. But DC, whoever was in charge of distribution at DC Comics started noticing something in the Arizona area. Comic shops in like the Arizona area, I think it was Arizona, weren't buying as many DC comics as they should have been buying. And they discovered that there was someone at DC, one of the longtime people at DC, a secretary or something. I think she was like Paul Levitz's secretary or someone. They ended up sweeping this all under the rug. Was like she had a racket where she was collecting all the unwanted comics around the office from lots of people who didn't want their comics and shipping them out to someone she knew in Arizona who was then selling them all to the shop. I mean, she had her own sub-distribution going on. I mean, it was a lot of comics. Along the way of DC investigating that and finding that out, they found out that Jim Hanley's universe was giving people credit. And so they went to Jim Hanley. They went to their DC people, the people at DC, and said, "You are no longer allowed to do this." And they went to Jim Hanley's universe and said, "You can no longer do this, or we will not distribute our comics to you," which I think is illegal, but they told them so. Jim Hanley's had to stop taking credit, and they stopped for Marvel too. Marvel, so you could know the Jimmy Bucks days were over, where you could trade in your unwanted comics.
I did not hear. I knew it came from DC. I didn't hear about the Arizona thing.
Oh yeah, because they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have noticed otherwise.
Right. No, I did not know it was something like that. I thought it was that they discovered somebody at DC was doing that, and they got upset.
Oh no,
I did not know about the
well,
Arizona
they
thing.
did do that. They discovered Lisa Hawkins was doing it. She was the one who got in trouble for it. She said, "What do you mean everybody's doing it?" And that ruined it for everybody. But they were investigating that. I think she was, like I said, a secretary from what I heard, running her. But she, like I said, she really had a. But then DC was like, yeah, they didn't want a scandal, so they just kept it all quiet. Told everybody to stop doing that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I did not know the full story
Yeah.
at all. And again, it was one of those things where it's like, it isn't until years later that it never occurred to me to bring some books to Jim Hanley's and Cosmic Comics. It never occurred to me because at one point I was handling the comps, the distribution of the comps for our floor, and there was always a few left. A few extra comics left that, since I had the library, I was putting it into the library. And that was fun until someone upstairs, one of the micromanagers, decided we need a count of the books that you're keeping. And it's like, I keep 5 of everything. Why do you need a count? But we want an inventory count. And it's like, okay. And then I started doing an inventory count. And every week I had to send in this inventory count, which was the same set of numbers, but plus 5. Same set of numbers plus 5. And then eventually I went to Dan, who was my boss in the bullpen at the time, and it's like, is anyone reading these things? Because I'm sending it to the micromanager. I'm sending it to you. Who's reading this stuff? And it's like, oh, I'm sure somebody's reading it.
Yeah, somebody else.
Sure. You're sure. And and what tipped me off that no one was reading it is that I sent the wrong attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And no one questioned it. I was like, okay.
Sent last week's numbers. No one noticed.
No one noticed it. Okay. I just stopped sending them.
Yeah.
And nothing happened. And nobody noticed. And it's like, this wasn't even my job description. Because at Marvel, the way you got a promotion, or the way I did, was, hey, would you hold this key for us? And that was the key to the library. And then I was the head of the library. So then it was like the same thing with the comps. We don't have anyone to do the comps because we fired half of the mail staff, the mailroom staff. And it's like, well, I could handle the comps for the for editorial, but that's it. I'm not doing it for the whole building. And I was like, okay, we'll do that. And they gave me they were doing the comps that way. And it's like,
seems like the same population here, pal. I think St. John's has 114,000 people. That's a fair amount. It's Friday again. Hey there, sleepy reader.
Hey.
Yep. They might have stopped comp copies over that. No, they stopped comp copies because Ike is the world's cheapest man. When Ike got gifted Marvel by the judge, he came in and saw the comics all over the place, and to him, those were comics he could be selling. He stopped all the comps because it also cost money to ship the comps to Marvel. He didn't want to pay that. And he wanted all of editorial to get rid of the comics in their offices. They had to explain to him eventually And for a couple of months, no one got any comps. It was just like you sent the comics out and never saw them. Never saw them printed, never saw anything. So eventually he came up, and DC, of course, Marvel and DC had a reciprocal agreement, where Marvel sent DC all their books, DC sent Marvel all their books. Ike stopped that, so DC's went, we're not sending you our books. Eventually, editorial got it to where they would get DC books. So it was like the last time, for like the last 5 years I was there, if you were on the editorial, I think you even had to be a full editor, not the assistant editors. You would get all the DC books and all the Marvel books. But if you were like regular rank and file too, you had a choice. You can get the comics or the trade paperbacks. You couldn't get both. You had to choose one. And it was like, and this was all Ike. And you had to take the books home with you immediately. You weren't allowed to have comic books lying around the comic book company, or Ike would stop the comps. There were so many threats when Ike was boss. It was crazy. It was like if he wanted a certain behavior from the company, they were they'd threaten to fire your boss, who you might like. Or there was like he did everything by threats. It was
it was like stupid. And then every now and then you get an email of ridiculousness, because it's like we spend more time reading the stupid emails. Like, you could not spend too much time on the phone. You would get because he had somebody sitting there going through the phone list and how long it took. It's like, why did it take this long for you to talk to this person on the phone? And it's like, they even did not like you calling home to say, oh, honey, I'm going to be late. Whole dinner. It's like, why are you making personal phone calls? Because you're keeping us late and not paying us for that time. I got a call once. I was asked, hey, why did I spend over 20 minutes on a phone call with one of our artists in Seattle? And it's like, because we were going through a whole list of artwork, what they had, what belonged to them, what did they do? Because some of these things weren't credited correctly, because we're always working to deadline. So I had to go through page by page with somebody, and we talked a little long. And it was like, well, try not to talk that long. It's like, this is what you're bugging us about. These type of things. We would spend more times kind of justify what we were doing there, that if you just let us do our job, we could have got the job done.
No, he wasn't. I'm saying you were lucky they didn't stop comp copies over the Arizona thing. That was DC, though. They were, Marvel wasn't involved in the Arizona thing. There was probably some Marvel comics going there, but probably more DC. Did Ike drive you away? It was kind of. It was time for me to leave. I'd been there too long. The incident that made me leave was a fantasy football dispute with my boss. But that was just sort of gave me excuse to leave. Because most people, well, first of all, I was freelance there. So I was only working 3 days a week, which was fine with me. I wasn't on staff. It gave me time to do other things. But I was on like my third or fourth set of people, because most of the people who were doing my job were there for 3, 4, 5 years and then left. And I was there like for 15, but that's because I would come and I wasn't there full time. So it was easier, but I just had to see what else life had to offer by that point. It was just kind of, it was no fun working there. It was, the Marvel bullpen of the 90s was a completely different thing than the Marvel bullpen of the 2000s. And the bullpen doesn't even exist anymore because Ike doesn't care. The Marvel bullpen of the 90s existed because, what's his name, Dobson, was invested in the myth of the Marvel bullpen. He liked that idea. Ike didn't care about anyone or anything. So it was a completely different environment. So he didn't quite drive me away, but he certainly didn't make me want to stay.
Yeah.
That's about right, shitty ass employers always just threatening to try and keep people in line. Yeah.
He didn't drive me away, but he tried to. He did not like my office because my office did not make any money.
Right.
My office spent money by returning the artwork back.
Yeah.
That was some of the
He
things
didn't
that
know I
got.
existed.
Oh, he knew I existed.
He didn't know I existed.
He hated my office. He came in once. This was back when, right after we moved to the new place, the first move that I was part of. When we got there, and this was when Bob Greenberg was my boss, and we just moved in. They the library and then the art returns room was merged into one big room. So I had probably the biggest office on the floor, an editorial. And so I had all the artwork there. I had all the books, and artwork was going to be coming in from Malibu at any time. And he walked into my room and he freaked out just seeing what the room looked like. And it's like, everything's in cabinets. Everything's put away. So it's not like things were out. Everything, was in these just big cabinets. It looked like a library that also had artwork. But he never seen the room before. And he just like he had his hand over his mouth and he was just looking. Now, granted, I don't know if he was looking and hoping to sell all that artwork. I bet you it crossed his mind. But again, it was one of those things where it was like, after that, and I couldn't even get to say anything. So Bob kind of like put his hand up just behind Ike for me not to say nothing. So I just kept quiet and, kind of explained what was what. And that was it. But after that, all these little things would pop up, like the micromanager from upstairs. And it was like, bean counter that came down and always had questions about the stupidest things. But I learned later he was the guy that was selling stuff for Ike. He was the one setting up the eBay page and all that stuff before we even moved. So it was like, okay, so because I was the one stopping people from just walking in and selling the artwork, I think they were upset with that. And again, that's the only thing I could suspect it was because I never got any real answers. And once Raphael left, I took Raphael's job and I brought in someone else to do art returns. So it was like, because I was no longer in that spot, I guess it was easier for them to let me go at that point. But I could only guess because they never really gave me a real answer of why I was let go. Right. But at that time, I was miserable.
Yeah.
I was kind of stuck there because every time I tried to get out and go into editorial, I got told, well, stay where you are. You're doing a good job there. And that was the problem. I did too good of a job.
Exactly.
I turned an entry-level position into the career. And, and I went through, I think, 3 or 4 bosses in my time. Dan was the last boss.
Right.
And I would say that I don't think he knew how to oversee me because there wasn't anything to oversee. The artwork comes in, the artwork goes out. It was a pretty simple job in that respect. But again, it was one of those things. It's like all I think he didn't like, what Dan didn't like, was that I wouldn't come in as early as everybody else was coming in.
Huh.
And because I even tried to come in early, and he would be there. I don't know what time he showed up there. It could have been maybe 4 a.m. He was there. So, but I did my hours. So if I came in at 9:30 instead of 9, I would stay there till 5:30.
Right.
Or sometimes even later because I wasn't in a rush to go home.
That reminds me, talking about artwork. There's just a couple of things I read on the Marvel Method group on Facebook, which is all about Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. And it's mostly pro Jack Kirby and anti Stan Lee. But this is something I've read many a time. And I wish for some reason, I can't comment in that group because you have to be approved by the moderator of the group in order to comment, and he just doesn't bother.
Right.
They just can't be bothered.
I think
Um,
I'm a part of that group. I do get their updates once in a while, but again, as you mentioned, it's usually a Stan Lee bash, and it's like I can't get into that argument again because that's almost every post will turn into a
oh yeah,
bash.
I'm okay with Stan Lee bashing, so I don't sweat that. But I had always heard like there was a big art theft at Marvel in like the late 70s, early 80s. That's when Amazing Fantasy disappeared. All the early Fantastic Fours and stuff like that disappeared. And I had always heard, oh, they know who did it, but no one ever says anything. And I'm always like, what are you talking about? I mean, who did it? And they're like, oh, every time I read someone, they said, oh, yeah, we're pretty sure we know who did it, but no one really names names. And then I think it was Alan Weiss that someone posted this little interview with Alan Weiss, and he names names. And he said he didn't know, he had heard it was Marie Severin who had taken the art. And the reason I think he named names is Marie Severin hated him. And that's what his quote was about, how in the 60s in his youth he was an asshole, and he said, but everybody at Marvel forgave him as he got older except Marie Severin. She still did not like him all the way into the 70s, and she was like, no, sorry, dude. I said, so then he was like, well, she was the one. So then he said, wow, I don't know about it. I'd heard she was the one who stole all that art. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's the first person I'd heard name. And I guess, and that would be a reason not to name someone, because she's, pretty well liked in the comic industry.
Mhm.
So that might be why she was never named or whatever. And the other thing that someone also in that group made a big post connected to a blog about Kirby getting his art back in the 80s, or Marvel not wanting to give Kirby his art back in the 80s. And I wanted to comment this, but I can't. During my first couple of years, I know it was in my first couple of years because it was before the bullpen got redone in 92. I just happened to be walking down the hall on editorial row, and Tom Brevoort, who was new, happened to be going into one of the closets. Do you remember it? Do you remember where the Xerox machine was on 387 after they redid it?
Yes.
It was at the back editorial row that went into sort of that back corner. The Xerox machine went across this way in the back of the book. It was all the way in that back corner. Tom Brevoort just happened to be going into a closet that one day, and I happened to glance over at the closet, and there was Jack Kirby art in the closet. And this is 1990, 1991, supposedly after they returned all the Jack Kirby art. And I was just like, Tom, what's all that Jack Kirby art doing in the closet? He's like, I don't know. It's just there. He was new at that time, too. But I was just like stunned that some random closet at Marvel had Jack Kirby art in it after I had heard they returned all the Jack Kirby art. So clearly they didn't. And I don't know what it was of. I only got a glance at it, but it was clearly original art, and it was clearly by Jack Kirby. So there were definitely shenanigans going on with Jack Kirby and returning his art. Did you guys hear anything about Marvel now that Ike is finally gone? I have not. Marvel's so corporate now; they're Disneyified. So, Gil Kane stole art too. That's a whole different thing. People name him.
I don't hear anything at all.
What Gil Kane used to do was no one had any fear of naming Gil Kane. This was after the big theft. He would go in and put his art on top of other art and walk out with it. And I forget which editor caught him after hours stealing art too. Gil Kane. I never met Gil Kane. He was persona non grata in the 90s at Marvel. He was not allowed in the building. So I never met him or saw him. Wow, thought everyone loves Marie. Yeah, everyone loves Marie. I think it was Alan Weiss. I'm not 100% sure on that name, but I'm 80% sure because it was a guy. I was like, oh, he's more of a '70s guy to me. I didn't even know he was around in the '60s. But he said he was an asshole in the '60s to John Romita, Stan Lee, whoever else was there at Marvel when he was
Was in
looking
the
for work,
60s?
and
Yeah, I
and
never
Marie
heard.
Severin did not forgive him.
I thought Ellen Weiss had started around the same time as Starlin.
Yeah, that's why I found it strange that he said that.
So he actually came in with people like Steve Skeets.
I think so. I'm not even sure. Like I have to double check that it was his
Mm.
name, but I think it was. But it was a guy like him. It was a guy who I thought was a '70s guy and didn't even know was around in maybe the late '60s.
Mm.
But he could have just been behind the scenes then. So he didn't. We wouldn't have known he was there.
Right. Like Claremont was already working as a gopher at Marvel when the Neil Adams run was being made.
Kurt Busiek was there in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It was Busiek. He was in marketing, right?
Busiek was in marketing. Peter David was in
They
sales.
Okay.
in love with marketing.
Uh oh.
We lost Wilson. His
There
internet
goes the
must have
internet.
let him down.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting all the Marvel tea tonight, folks. Yeah.
But the other day, in his chat with La Raza, Comic Crack brought up a comic that was drawn by Pasquale Ferry. And I'm kind of surprised because the first time I saw Pasquale Ferry working in the U.S. market was in the mid '90s.
Uh-huh.
But I knew he existed because there was one of his graphic novels that he did for at CIMOC in around 1988, and I'm like, okay, so we have a Spanish guy that was already working in the '80s, only got known in America in the '90s, but in 2023 is still making comics for the American market.
Huh.
And I find it amazing because a Spanish guy that manages to stay in the U.S. market for so long, especially after all of the ups and downs of the industry and people and the older guys leaving.
Yeah.
And,
That is amazing. That's a long time.
mm-hmm.
What's his name?
Pasquale Ferry.
I don't think I know him. What was he drawn for Marvel?
At Marvel, I remember him doing. He did a few X-Men fill-ins, I think, for Salvador Larroca, and then he did Heroes for a Hire, the series during the Heroes Reborn.
Ah,
the one that John Ostrander started. Because remember that I think that was the first time John Ostrander had a Marvel comic.
John Ostrander and Tim Truman.
Because that's the other thing. There are a lot of guys who do things mostly for one publisher, and when they do something for another one, whoa, what's this guy doing here? Like Ostrander doing Heroes for Hire, and I'm used to seeing him doing DC stuff. And like when the first time Romita Jr. moved to DC to work on Superman, it was that was already in the 2000s. This is the first, and I remember this is the first time Romita Jr. is working for DC. There are guys that go back and forth, but
that's for
Bernie Wrightson. Bernie Wrightson's very few
after
Marvel.
I told that story, that may have been the only time I ever saw Kirby artwork at Marvel in that closet. That's especially why it stands out, because at no other time did I ever see Kirby artwork.
From which artwork did they do the early Masterworks?
I don't know. They didn't do that from the art. They did that from the stats.
Huh.
Yeah, all of those were made from the stats. So you don't need. They never needed the artwork to reprint the comics. They always had stats made. And that's what you reprint the comics from, if you need them. If you don't have the plates or the film or something like that. That was the new Doctor Strange stuff, wasn't it, Paulo?
Yeah. You were showing the Doctor Strange on your show with Rasa, because it didn't even look like regular Pasquale Ferry. The guy's been in the business for over 35 years, but he keeps evolving, which is commendable.
Wilson's back.
I'm back. My connection, like myself, is quite unstable tonight, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure how long I'll be able to stay on.
The rain is getting to you.
Yep.
The rain in the Bronx falls mainly on Wilson's connection. The Bronx. Let's see, what comic did I get this week? Let's start with a facsimile edition, which I haven't read yet because I'm in no hurry to read the facsimiles. The Micronauts #1. And it's a $4.99 facsimile.
Yeah, that thing I find ridiculous.
That's
Because
kind of expensive.
when they were doing those, when they were doing those things for $1, sure, let's get it. But
yeah.
now that they're the same price as the other ones.
But the reason I wanted to get this one was I wanted to see Michael Golden's artwork with modern printing. That's the whole reason I want. And I got to say, it looks good. It's very sharp. You can see all his. I'm impressed with it. Like I said, I haven't read it yet, but just looking through it, I think they did a nice job with the printing. Crisp, sharp, bright colors, all the original coloring, no new coloring stuff, but of course more solid. And it's on this, I guess it's a semi-gloss. I don't know what you to call this paper, but it's not really that gloss. I've seen much glossier paper, but it's pretty good. I have to say, I'd say Marvel did a nice job with this one. It's got a little bit of waviness to it, but it seems like all comics these days do that don't have good cover paper. But I have not read the Micronauts since the 80s. So.
Yeah, every once in a while when I still was trying to buy an old comic, once in a while I'd pick, because there were a lot of things that I read out of order.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would either read a friend's copy or go out and buy an old one, and there was a Micronauts story inside, because they only published the first 13 issues of the Micronauts in an anthology where they ran Avengers, Thor, and Iron Man. Okay, and one thing that I remember about it is because they started Micronauts right around the same time as the Roger Stern's Doctor Strange and the Power Pack. So there was a bunch of new characters. And I didn't even think about them as new characters, but I had read stuff before. Those characters weren't there, and now they were. So, but I just found everything fascinating, and the Micronauts were fascinating in themselves. Was the Michael Golden's artwork, which was completely different.
I didn't realize that Joe Rubinstein inked this first issue. I guess I never paid attention before. And he's credited as the embellisher too, so he may have been working over some loose pencils. But the faces are nice. And let's see who else worked on this. Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden, writer, storytellers, artist. Joseph Rubinstein, embellisher. Al Milgram, editor. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. Tom Orzechowski, letterer. And Glynis Wein is the colorist. By the way, have you ever run into the name Glynis besides Glynis Wein's name? I have never seen that name.
That's the only place
that
I've ever seen that name.
Wow.
I never paid that much attention to colorists, but I see Glynis Wein's name so often. What other colorists did Marvel have working at the same time as her?
I don't know. She colored a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and they were putting out, what, 40 comics a month?
Yeah. But like, I've never run into that name again. Yeah, I think my copies, I used to have every issue of the Micronauts all the volumes, but ended up selling them on eBay a few years ago, and they're in France now. Last I knew, so. But I was like, you know what? I haven't looked at these since the '80s. I may as well pay. I need some money, and I may as well pass them on to somebody who. I need some space too. I got to get rid of more stuff because I got either got to build more shelves or get rid of some stuff. I think I might do both.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that I liked about the Micronauts wasn't even a part of the Micronauts themselves, because they weren't the toy. It was the Enigma Force, and which gave rise to Captain Universe.
Okay.
And after the Micronauts ended, they didn't do much with it in the Marvel Universe. Every once in a while, they'd bring out Captain Universe story just to put a logo on a cover and keep the trademark. But
yep,
Well,
because our
Micronauts
lawyers
was
demand.
licensed. Yeah, because
yeah, but
Micronauts was a license.
yeah, but they're
The only thing Marvel
sure.
could use was Bug.
No, not quite. Marvel can use almost everything. The only thing they can't use the designs for Baron Karza, Force Commander, Biotron, Microtron, a Croyer, and Space Glider. Now, if you take Arcturus Ran is a elemental creation. So if Ran doesn't have is not wearing the Space Glider armor, they can use him without a problem. Same thing with Princess Marionette.
Who's the lead? What's his name?
So Arcturus Ran.
That's him.
He put on the Space Glider armor from the toy.
And who's the woman? What was her name?
That was Marionette. She's a member of the royal family. Her brother was Prince Argon, who became a Force Commander. He was he was the White Centaur. So the White
Marionette Hasbro's?
No, Marionette is Marvel's. Argon is not. Argon is a toy in a centaur form. This is the White Centaur. Karza had the regular armor and the Black Centaur.
Okay.
And the Croyer was
I always loved the tagline. They came from inner space. Always a great tagline.
Yeah, because the rest of the storyline is completely Marvel's. They can use pretty much everything that's in the Micronauts comic. Marvel can use.
Jonathan Hickman used Captain Universe in the Avengers.
Okay. Yeah, but
that was funny. I was just watching Sleepy Reader's video about some stuff he got recently, and I think he said he bought the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four omnibus. Came out like 10 years ago or something, I think he said. And he had liked it. And I was like, oh, that was the run that made me really... That was like one of the nails in my coffin for sort of Marvel Comics of the day. Because that was the one with like the Legion of Reed Richards, I think, at some point.
Yes, but I liked it a lot.
That's too much for me.
In fact, after liking Secret Warriors, the Fantastic Four solidified Jonathan Hickman for me. So he went on to the Avengers, and I thought he was going to be great, but it wasn't. It was the most boring Avengers in the history of the Avengers, even more boring than Bendis' stuff.
Yeah, the most boring Avengers was the stuff right after issue 200. That made me stop reading the Avengers.
No.
More recently, Ewing's Defenders Beyond had a version of Captain. Yeah, Captain Universe has popped up pretty regularly over the years.
Yeah.
And I always found him really bland. Didn't Spider-Man become Captain Universe in the 90s?
Yeah.
Yes. He gained part of the powers for a little while when the Tri-Sentinel came out. Something happened where he didn't gain all the powers. So he gained some of the powers, but none of the knowledge. So he was slowly getting the Captain Universe's powers, and then at the end he finally got them all with the information, and it was because of the Tri-Sentinel.
That was still Wilson's time, obviously.
Yeah, that was the time I was reading. Eric Larson, I believe, was doing the artwork at the time.
I think the
Avengers
last time
was unreadable. So Sleepy.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was reading through that, and okay, when does anything happen? because there was a lot of standing around and talking and villains plotting. Actually, the villains weren't even, no, the villains weren't plotting. The villains were plotting what they were going to plot, but they ended up not plotting anything, and things happened anyway, of which the villains were not at fault and the heroes did nothing to prevent. That was Hickman's Avengers.
Yeah, the Legion of Reeds or whatever it was called was just to me sort of I've complained about this before, I just hate the multiple versions of every character. That to me, like everything is Silver Age DC. I just don't like that. Because to me it takes the drama out of it all. Because if you kill this Reed Richards, there's 900 to take his place. That's what he did. There was like Reed Richards
No,
dying left and right in that issue.
Yeah, but that was not the point. The point, because this was still Marvel enough. Now everything has counterparts in multiple dimensions, and it's okay because they want to make toys of it. But the point of the League of Reed Richards was that the 616 Reed Richards was the best Reed Richards. None of the other Reed Richards deserved to live.
Well, of course he was. I mean, that's a given. That's understood. Like I said, that's just not. I just hate that about corporate comics, especially because and like you said, it's because they want to make toys and underoos, that they want to sell backpacks. So
sure, but not in the Legion of Reeds. That was essentially was a what if comic. And I have a friend who once noticed this. Okay, the Marvel universe is where everything works out. If it doesn't work out, it's a what if comic, and everyone dies.
That was the whole point. I discovered that. I figured that out as a kid reading What If in the 70s. Mm-hmm. If Marvel had a what ifs, and every story in What If had to end tragically.
Oh yeah,
thus
to me
justifying all the the regular Marvel universe.
Yeah,
back when we just called it the regular Marvel universe.
With one exception, What If Volume 2, Number 1, which is what if the Avengers had lost the Evolutionary War, and you find out, they should have let the bomb go off and the High Evolutionary turn everyone into Ultra Mutants.
Once What If Volume 1 was done, all the rules were off for any other volumes, because they were always trying to figure out a way to justify the book. Because What If Volume 1, even before it was over, pretty much covered most of the important ground in the Marvel universe. So by the time the other volumes came out, they were just looking for lots
before,
any
the last about 10 issues of the first series, because there was that series with there was an issue which had 3 different stories, like with Captain America, who was old and in the future, and there was the one with Daredevil was also old and in the future, and then there was the whole humor issue. Because we ran out of ideas.
What if you went to the movies and had to sit behind the leader? Still my favorite joke in that. I don't know why.
It was as funny as it was. You could tell those guys are out of ideas. There's no more important stories to cover, and you let it rest for a few years. You start off with Volume 2. And the first few issues, you can still have some interesting stories, because there were interesting stories, like the one where Conan fights Captain America. Conan stays in the present, and he ends up fighting Captain America. That's
a pretty good story. 1.
That was no. The first one where he comes to the present, and then he goes back. Then there's in Volume 2, there's a story where he doesn't go back.
There's 2 in Volume 1. One's got a Sienkiewicz cover, and one's got a John Buscema cover. Those are both in Volume 1. I don't know.
Those are both in Volume 1. Okay.
I just remember reading a story where a what if story where Conan fought Captain America. I think he actually beat him too, because everybody was like, "Oh, Conan beat Captain America."
Well, of course, Conan beat Captain America. He fights dirty. He fights dirty and has a sword. Of course he. I wasn't totally expecting that.
I still have all my Volume 1 what ifs on my shelf, but I haven't looked at them in so long. I really don't know what's in
I-
most of the
and
stories, except for the early ones. Like
and
when
volume.
I was lucky enough to be around to buy the very first issue of What If as a kid off the shelf. So it was like, holy cat, that was like, what if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? It was like double sized. It was so cool. It was a what if. That was like the greatest thing ever when I was, what year did that come out? When I was 10 or 12?
74, I think.
No, it was later than that. I was probably maybe
76?
76.
I think it was 76 when that came out.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
just going off the top of my head.
We,
Uh,
I just know that I considered myself having started collecting comics with Hulk 276. So I don't remember as much. And if I bought it off the stands, that means it was after Hulk 200. I should say, if I remember buying it off the stands, it was after Hulk 200 because I did actually buy stuff before then. I just wasn't that into it. But yeah, that I can remember. We all, everybody in the neighborhood got that issue and loved what it was like the greatest thing, that What If #1. Then we kind of lost we kept buying it, but that first issue had more enthusiasm for it than any other comic I can remember from my youth. That What If #1, it was just like,
There was
whoa.
one. There was one thing that Volume 1 was better than Volume 2, which was the art. Because even if it wasn't one of the top artists, at least it was somebody who worked regularly at Marvel who did the What If stories.
Right.
In Volume 2, they were going for the Marvel Comics Presents people.
Yeah. And I don't remember because I never read Volume 2, but I remember in the 90s, a lot of the What Ifs were like mashups. What if,
yeah,
Daredevil, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. There was this guy
No, that
having Captain
that wasn't.
America's sword.
No, the
Or something.
Daredevil Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. was still in Marvel Volume 1. It was still in Volume 1.
That was still
I think.
Volume 1?
Yeah, because they didn't have Frank Miller artwork.
No, that was What If Elektra Had Lived,
Right.
had Frank Miller. That was the only Frank Miller I remember.
issue
But
1
like
came
I
out
remember
in
mashups in Volume
1977.
2. What was that?
But you know, in the
What If #1 came out in 1977.
77?
And it looks like Volume 1 ran till 1984.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sleepy says, for the most part, multiverse stories are a symptom of creative exhaustion. Marvel should have ended when Claremont left the X-Men. See, I don't even think multiverse stories are a symptom of creative exhaustion. I think they're just inevitable. With corporate-owned comic, well, maybe creative exhaustion is inevitable too. I don't know. With like corporate-owned comics that
Yeah, the thing is that the parallel dimension with evil versions of yourself is a science fiction trope. So it's going to be it's going to appear in a comic book. It's
well,
like you say,
I also think it's when you've got a corporate-owned comic, you can't really change Spider-Man that much.
Yeah.
But you can change alternate universe version of Spider-Man all you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the marketers get involved and they're like, ooh, alternate versions of Spider-Man, that's a good idea. That means we can sell more backpacks.
Yeah.
And I think and the creators
and
pick up on that.
Editorial that's manifested when the alternate version, when that is specific issue of the alternate versions outsells the regular ones. Ooh, we have to make this the regular Spider-Man.
Right. But I think creative exhaustion may. I think it's creative exhaustion, like I said, in the context of I can think of way more stuff to do with alternate version Batman than I can with Batman because the rules are off. So I think that's one of the that's the creative reason it happens. Then it of course happens because you want all the alternate. You want to make Spider-Man, Spider-Girl, Spider-Boy, and have all the trademarks. So there's lots of. I think Paulo's right about Miller DD What If. I know there was a Miller DD What If, but the one I know is the What If Elektra Had Lived.
But I think it was one of those with shorter stories because I don't think it was a complete issue.
Oh, maybe.
But
there was,
because what I do
a few at the end with.
Yeah, what I do remember is there was a time when the regular Shield agents at had orange uniforms, and
Okay.
Matt Murdock in that story was a Shield agent with an orange uniform. But in the 90s, nobody remembered that the orange uniforms existed because everybody was wearing the blue ones.
I don't remember the orange ones existed.
But yeah, I remember that. But the thing is, they were toying with the idea of Daredevil becoming a Shield agent in the regular Marvel universe around 70.
That kind of
72,
makes sense.
73.
It's not so far off. He's like a normal human, just like
And
every
his
other
cult.
Shield agent. Then he's got some
Yeah.
superpowers.
Yeah, and his cult.
He'd fit right in with Shield.
Yeah.
No problem.
No, but there was a storyline that was parallel to Iron Man, although there wasn't a proper crossover. With Mr. Klein, which was a robot, and they messed up the ending because the ending came out before the penultimate part. But I know there was a time when they were thinking about turning it into Daredevil and Iron Man. They were going to be in the same comic. I suppose Matt Murdock would have become Stark's lawyer or something. And Matt was on mission, was doing that storyline. He was doing a mission for Shield, and they wanted to I think they wanted to recruit Daredevil and Foggy. I don't know why they wanted Foggy, but sure.
What's Sleepy talking about here? When they killed Clark and Lois and then replaced them with a different Clark and Lois and with Mxyzptlk. I thought it was an incredible cop-out. I don't know that particular cop-out. But if Superman DC was full of cop-outs in the 70s when I was growing up. So
hey, you can always say, oh, this is an imaginary story.
We lost Wilson
again.
He's got that unstable connection tonight. Let's see, another comic. This was a particularly good issue of Monstrous.
Okay.
It's kind of the equivalent of a story skipping ahead years, but not really. Because Monstrous is like too complicated to explain because it's this epic fantasy story about all these different factions, all these different factions having a fight. The animal people, the humans, the animal half humans people, the noble people, the thieves. So there's all sorts of different factions.
How is that different from Saga?
Saga's much smaller. Saga has all that stuff going on around it, but it's really about 1-2 people. This is about all the stuff that's going on around, plus a couple of people. And like the last, 6 issues or so, and there's old gods in this one too that aren't in Saga. The Eldritch gods or whatever, who were banned from the earth thousands and thousands of years ago. So like these last 6 issues took place on this like other planet that the old gods were banished to. And like and our lead character is this woman who's like a sorceress princess. Oh, we almost had Wilson back. And she was like had this old god attached to her inside her. On this prison planet, the old god is on the outside and has this woman princess, our lead character, the half wolf, attached to him, and like all the other old gods are that. And like for the last 6 issues, we've been learning a lot about these old gods and what they've been doing for the last thousands of years on this prison planet, having their own wars, and they want to get back to whatever Earth this is. Anyway, eventually, and there's also been like meanwhile back on Earth, this whole like war has been going on between all the whole war had just started and was going on for like 6 to 12 issues, but really it just started before we went into this other place. And we learned more about her, the half wolf, Mika half wolf or something like that, her past and this and that. Good stuff the whole time. But anyway, our cast of characters finally gets back to their Earth, And they're like, oh crap, because it turns out time has passed and the war has progressed and all sorts of things that have happened that they know nothing about. And there's just all sorts of exciting stuff happened at the end of this particular issue. So it was a good issue. But it's much different than Saga. Not nearly as sort of personal as Saga. And there's not like this. The cat creatures aren't cute in this one. The cats are killers. But yeah, good issue of Monstrous. What are we up to here? 48. Wow. I have no idea how many issues this is supposed to be going, but it could be going for a long time. Let's see if Wilson is back this time. Hey, he's back this time.
Is he?
Uh-oh. He's back, but can he hear us? Can we hear him?
Wilson, can you move?
I don't know. We'll just look at him a little bit. Maybe he'll move and talk. Let me get rid of this phone.
Well, if it's somebody offering you money, say yes. And no Wilson.
No Wilson. He still hasn't disappeared from the little box down below because he's spinning, but welcome to New York City, where the internet doesn't work in the rain. Oh, that's the Superman was an example of Kratos exhaustion from 5 years ago. Ah, okay.
Oh, okay, so it's
line. Yeah, he needs a landline to connect with
the
dial up.
Oh yeah, now I remember what you're talking about. Yeah, because this is a post New 52. DC for me ended with Final Crisis. I still tried to read some of the New 52 books because they sounded interesting, but then they were not what I expected. The ones that I liked were canceled. The ones that I was not into kept going, and the ones that I didn't read because I thought they sucked, they continued for until the next reboot.
You know what was funny about the New 52 for me? That was right before the New 52. Was, I've mentioned this before, a period where I was buying mostly collected editions. Before what I consider the Image Revolution, Saga and the Image Revolution happened. Where, like 2008, 2009. What year was the New 52? 2010, right?
About that, yeah.
About that, right? So I had been getting like 1 or 2 comics a week. There were some weeks, so I was buying collected editions, trying out stuff, until finally I said to myself, you know what, I want to buy comics. I'm tired of these collected editions. I want to buy. I'm going to start actively looking for new comics to read. So I started trying out new Marvel. I tried out some Marvel. I tried out some DC. I tried out whatever. And the one thing that I really liked from DC was that they had some Teen Titans issues right around that time. Like I forget who was doing it, but that was like my favorite thing coming out from DC during that period. And then like right after I found a few new books to buy, they announced the New 52 and all of them were canceled. I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, looks like the network is too unstable for me tonight. I was shocked that Jared has a landline phone. Yeah, that's true. I do have a landline phone still. It's only $10 a month, so still got it.
I can have a free one with my cable,
yeah.
But I don't even bother because it just takes up space.
I've just had the same landline all my life, so why not just keep it going? My sister and parents use it. My parents use it when they're up too. I got the cell phone now. I didn't have a cell phone for the longest time. You know, I was one of the people who was really late to a cell phone, and then I was really late to a smartphone. I really didn't. I didn't have an iPhone until what, 3 years ago?
Oh, I will never have an iPhone. I'm too smart to use Apple products.
I'm an artist, so I've been using Apple products.
Right, exactly. You're an artist. You use Apple products.
Out of habit these days, because they don't even really cater to artists anymore.
Did you have an iPod?
You have an iPod?
I didn't have an iPod. I had a regular MP3 player.
Oh, I had an iPod. Yep. I have. Matter of fact, I wish they all still could hook them up and use them, but
Last year I bought an MP3 player because
I've been thinking about buying one.
No, because sometimes in case I had to go back to going to car media presentations abroad, I'm not going to spend the phone's battery on 3 hours of listening to music because I'm going to need the battery when I get there. So I bought an MP3 player. I would listen to it on the plane, and the phone's battery would be okay.
Well, the problem I have, before I had the iPhone, I had an Amazon Fire phone.
Hmm.
Which had a good camera in it. But the problem with both the Amazon and the Apple one are they're bad with music. Because I have my own playlist. I like to make my own playlist. I don't like to stream music. I like to make my own playlist and then just put them on my player.
Yeah.
Both the Amazon Fire phone and the iPhone, sometimes the music just won't copy. Let's say I think I have about 40 playlists. About 30 of them work fine. The other 10, no, it just doesn't bring the music over. They're blank or they're missing half the songs. And I'm like, why? There's no reason. I mean, all you do is drag and drop. How come they're not there? Wasn't able to figure it out with the Amazon Fire phone. Can't figure it out with the iPhone. Same with my iPad. I'm like, the only explanation is both of them want you to use their streaming service.
Mm-hmm. That was a problem. Because I once saw a guy complaining about his iPod, and Apple deleted his files and replaced them with commercially approved versions of the song.
I think they did that for me too. I'm not 100% sure. And some stuff I have is just missing from my hard drive. I'm like, where did it go? I went to play a Diggable Planets album for the first time in 20 years and it wasn't there anymore. It's like, hey, this should be on my hard drive. How could it disappear? That and the other thing, Apple, I'm going to have to, drives me crazy. Because I bought a new computer 3 years ago now. Is it 3 years ago now? An Apple Mini to replace my 13-year-old Tower, which I still like better. And Apple hard drives are like the smallest thing in the world. It's really annoying. I mean, I have like 12 hard drives hooked up to it, so I got plenty of space. But the actual hard drive the system runs on, the solid state one, is small. So I have a hard drive, 2-3 terabytes just for my music. Right? So when I open up iTunes, I tell it not to copy my music because I don't need it filling up my system hard drive with music I don't need. Right. Well, because I don't even know, that's either a terabyte or a half a terabyte. I can't, it's small, whatever it is. Because when you buy an Apple and you want to upgrade the hard drive when you first buy it because you can't upgrade it afterwards anymore, it's like buying gold. You're like, holy, it's like, you know what? Going from a half a terabyte to a terabyte shouldn't be $400.
Mm-hmm.
But what it did was it didn't copy all of my music, but my iTunes library, the library file, is now 250 gigabytes, which takes up. Oh, look, Wilson is gone, but here comes Chris. All right, you can take his place. Good evening.
Took the handoff.
How are you doing tonight, Chris?
I'm all right. How are you?
All righty. Let's see. What was Sleepy?
You're not drawing today. We can actually see you standing straight.
What is that
finished the
all
book.
about? You
I
finished the
finished the
book.
Yes.
Pending.
All right. I've
pending another
noticed
round.
Officer Clawsome showing up in your webcomic too.
Oh, you noticed that?
A
Okay.
crossover.
Yes. Killer crossovers.
For those of you who don't know, Chris has been working on a young reader, Officer Clawsome. Hold on, let's get you big so you can show it off. Officer Clawsome, Lobster Cop. He and Smitty, Brian Smith. Smitty's writing that. Chris is drawing it, and they're coming out with volume 2.
Volume 1 available now.
Volume 1 available now, and you can read. Where's your web comic at?
ChrisJeruso.com.
ChrisJeruso.com. You can see his web comic, and Officer Clawsome has been showing up in his web comic, crossing over with G-Man, his longtime character,
and the Fire Dogs,
and the Fire Dogs,
Pooch Guy, and Grin.
Oh,
Grin,
and now I finally get a chance to tell Chris Jeruso my favorite Chris Jeruso line that he never said. Because it was Dream Chris Jeruso.
Did you say the line because you cut out for a second? I didn't.
Oh, no, I didn't say the line. I said it was Dream Chris Jeruso.
I said this to you in a dream?
You in a dream. I don't remember the last time you were on, a month or two ago. But it must have been right after that. I had a dream. And first of all, did you ever have a night's sleep where you keep waking up, but only for seconds? It's kind of like, sometimes I'm sleeping and I wake up and I go, it's 2:30 in the morning. But then I fall back to sleep instantly. And I wake up like 10 minutes later. And I'm like, it's 2:43. And then I fall back to sleep. And sometimes that happens to me where I wake up, but I'm right back to sleep. This dream was sort of like that, in that it's weird that I'm dreaming about how I sleep. So in the dream, I wake up.
That's the most Jared thing ever.
Yes, and then fall back to sleep. So in the dream, I wake up and I'm going to commute in for the morning, right? All of a sudden, I'm waiting for a bus. I'm like, holy cow, I'm waiting for a bus. Except I'm like, I must have driven here, but I don't remember it. I fell asleep since I got here. But all I'm wearing is a pair of gray sweats, and I have a sheet wrapped around me. I don't have a shirt on. I got a sheet wrapped around me. I'm like, if I don't catch this bus, I'm going to be late, but I don't even have a wallet. How can I get on the bus? Then I fell asleep again. And I woke up, and I'm on the bus. And I'm taking the bus into New York City. And I got the sheet wrapped around me. And I'm like, how did I even get on the bus without my wallet? But then I fall asleep again. And
wait a minute. When you're awake,
I'm not literally awake.
Okay.
I'm awake in this. I'm falling asleep and waking up in the dream. Sort of like I do in real life sometimes. So I'm just saying, time passes as I go, because it's like I go to sleep in the dream and wake up and go, how did I get here on the bus? So then I fall asleep on the bus and I wake up and I'm like in Port Authority or somewhere, and I'm walking around, and who do I run into at Port Authority but Chris Jeruso? And I'm like, Chris, I don't know what happened. I lost my shirt. And you look at me and went, it's no problem. I lose my shirt all the time. And that Chris Jeruso way. And it's like, that's why I carry an extra one in my bag. And I looked down, and I had a bag on with an extra shirt in it. I was like, thanks, Chris. And that's when I woke up for real. But usually I don't remember things in my dream, but just the way in my dreams, it's okay. I lose my shirt all the time. It was so memorable that I remember it till now. So that's my new favorite Chris Jeruso.
No, but I like that after I said it,
never
you
actually
had a
said.
bag. I like that after I said it, you had one, and you had
I
a bag.
All of a sudden, I had a bag and I had a shirt
the whole time.
Like,
you had it,
Chris. That's good advice. That's okay. I lose my shirt all the time. Let's see who's been saying stuff. Wilson says, "Yeah, I had an iPod, many of the Apple products. Me too. A coworker on excavations had a Zune back in the day. We made fun of them. The Microsoft Zune." AirDrop is keeping me in the Apple ecosystem these days. Yeah, AirDrop is so easy to use. Apple removed music off hard drives. Crazy, right? Ah, you finished it. Cool. That's to Chris. It's okay. He loses his shirt all the time.
Yeah, I don't mean Apple products because the Chinese make these knockoffs.
I was looking at something like that. Is that any good?
Yeah, it's if you have to stop during the middle of a song, it doesn't restart from where it was, which is kind of annoying. But it's more annoying when you're listening to podcasts because you're halfway through a 3-hour podcast and you have to remember where it was.
Jared dreams, therefore others exist. Let's see, what else did I get this week? Oh, a really good issue of Starstorm.
Yeah, looks good.
By Drew Craig. And if you don't remember this one, Chris, I think you were around for the first issue I was showing of this, where the double page spread was cut in half. Like, the first side of the double page spread was on this side, and then you turned to the page, and the other side of the double page spread was on this side. And I was like, how is that possible? How can... And I'm still not sure if this one... I'll show you some of the artwork. Because this is Wes Craig's brother, Drew Craig. And I'm still not sure if he's really an amateur or he's a sophisticated professional using some amateur techniques.
There's a lot of Rob Liefeld riffs on this.
Yeah, there's a lot, and there's jokes in it where he's talking about shoulder pads and gauntlets in costumes.
Yeah, because that cover looks like it was made for an Extreme comic.
Yeah,
look at that. I love it.
And I am really enjoying it because his enthusiasm for the material. There's a let me show you this up close. I mean, this is so like 90s.
Look,
superhero.
It's the Rob post for Cable.
And this is like his. This is like the fourth super team he's introduced in this book. He's got like super teams coming out the wazoo. That's why to me it seems like this is the idea he had in high school, and he's been waiting 20 years to make this comic or something like that. But he was never a comic book artist. And so there's like so many, like even at the end, he has this guy show up who we don't even know who he is. And he says, "Come with me if you want to live." And this little balloon down here just says derivative. So like there's even like commentary on the derivative parts. And there's one, our three main characters join with this super team to do some stuff. And where's the line about, let me see if I can find that line about the costumes. Oh, here we go. These are the guys on the super team talking to our lead characters. "Me and my brother would like to applaud you for your fashion choices. My man, some people say gauntlets and shoulder pauldrons went out in the 90s, but we disagree. Right on, my man." So they even joke about the big wrist gauntlets and shoulder things.
They even say a phrase like "right on, my man," and ironically.
It's very aware of its own sort of influences and cheesiness, but not in a sort of making fun of it way. I like it. Drew Craig is really enjoying himself making this, and he honestly likes it, I think.
Okay,
This
so
is his-
Drew Craig needs to be watching this right now because I'm going to give him a sound bite for his trade paperback.
Yeah, what is that?
Carefully planned to be bad.
But it's not bad.
No, exactly. But that's why it's saying it's
Right.
carefully planned.
It's not even something like it that it's not in the like so bad it's good category. It's actually good.
Right.
But
And
there's
that's
also
the thing.
parts of it that are amateurish. But
Yeah, but like I say,
he leans into that.
either looks he's either an amateur or sophisticated to look like an amateur.
Right.
So
I don't know which it is.
So that's why I describe it like that.
Right.
Carefully planned to be bad.
So yeah, I think that makes it sound like it's so bad it's good kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what category to put it in like that.
Yeah, but that's why I want Drew Craig to be watching this right now, so that you know those blurbs they put on book covers. So that would be a great cover blurb.
We get lots of these flying straight at you poses.
Yeah.
And a lot of the poses are like straight at you or profile. Sort of like the easiest amateurish poses to draw. But there's also some talent to it. It's like I really enjoyed this issue, and I've really been enjoying this series. So it's good stuff. The savage strength of Starstorm. And it's definitely like a high school teenager fantasy because the main character is in high school and he and his friends just got superpowers. And now he take on the Galactic Empire.
Of course it's the Galactic Empire. That's what you always call the bad guys when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
The Galactic
you don't just
Empire.
fight a guy robbing banks. There's a whole Galactic Empire out there.
Yeah.
With 9,000 super teams.
Exactly.
Like the one,
and all of them are going to appear.
The one group of bounty hunters, there was like 6 of them in the group, and they all had tiger motifs. Tiger Man, Princess Tiger, Mr. Tiger, Tiger Girl, Tiger Guy, the Tiger. It was like any tiger name that was out there, he had in his tiger group. That comic is taking Double H-Head to new and strange places. You just don't get it. You're right. I did not get it. Some 20 years ago in my wild days, I fell asleep at the office after a crazy partying night nearby. Secretary wakes me at 9 a.m. for a meeting with a client. My shirt was all dirty, and I went on wearing a suit, but no shirt. Client stayed with us for many years, and once I told him that story, he noticed nothing. It's okay. I lose my shirt all the time. So you working on anything tonight, Chris?
Just trying to do a general reorganization of everything that I let go when I wasn't paying attention.
Ah, okay. Cleaning up the old studio space.
Cleaning up and organizing.
Did the Justice League members move while you weren't noticing?
Yeah, there's been a little bit of shuffling.
Some shuffling. I got the Bad Idea digital stuff out today. I wasn't sure we were going to be able to, but Bad Idea ran a Kickstarter where they were reinventing the idea of digital comics, where the basic idea was they were going to give you a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff and all the comics at high resolution. So the PDFs I made that the people, you could actually send those to the printer and print your own comic. They're all 450 DPI PDFs of the various 7 comics. That 7 of the comics, that Bad Idea. So if you want to bootleg Bad Idea comics to an actual printer, you had to get on this Kickstarter.
Yeah, why would anyone ever do that? I guess you could print your own. just off your own printer if you wanted.
Yeah, you could. Oh, we got a Chris. Are there any Micronauts in your studio collection?
Yeah, there's a few. Would you like me to show you?
Why not? I was just showing off there was a Micronauts #1 facsimile edition this week. So we may as well look at some Micronauts comics. What's Chris trying to do?
Move the camera.
Trying to bring us with you, or are you going to go get the Micronauts?
I'll switch the camera.
He's going to bring us with him. I see now. I wasn't sure if it was easier to get the Micronauts or bring us with. I guess there must be more Micronauts than he can carry, and he doesn't want to set them up again.
All right. Got this guy.
Is that Baron Karza?
That's Baron Karza. And then I've got these guys, which I think are called Micronauts, but I don't know if they resemble anything in the comics ever.
Oh, I think that's like Time Lord or something. I remember him from the toy ads, but I don't remember him from the comic.
They didn't. I think they went with the Enigma Force because they had the Enigma Force concept. So I don't think they used Time Lord.
And then I have these things, but I think these are called Metal Men.
I've seen the Metal Men. That's not them. Pharaoh and Iron and
no, not those Metal Men. I think the toy. I think it's a different Metal Men.
Ah, okay.
I think that's what they're called. I could be wrong.
Only a couple Micronauts. Micronauts were before your time, so.
Yeah, they were. Micro Man.
Might be called Micro Men. Oh, the Metal Men? Wilson says. Oh, Miko Men. I don't know if that's supposed to be Micro or Miko. I don't know either way because
all I know is the Japanese commercial where they say Miko Man.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that might be what they call them in Japan. In Japan, the hand can be used like a knife, but not on a tomato.
and not on fish. It doesn't work the same way.
The old Ginsu knife commercial.
Mm-hmm. So I bought a comic.
You bought a comic? What did you get?
So this was created by my comic shop owner. He's now on an artistic bent. So every once in a while he puts out something that's artistic. The comic is called "There Are Those Who Want the Lights to Go Out." And it stars two Portuguese cartoonists.
Oh, okay.
And there or future versions of current Portuguese cartoonists living in a dystopia.
Let me get you big so you can show us a little of it.
So this guy is Dario, is the artist on this comic.
Okay.
Is a prolific humor artist. The guy in the wheelchair is Álvaro, who is the author of the graphic novel, of the Jesus Christ themed graphic novel, Holy Shit, I'm Back. And yeah, this is a 16-page comic, and it's fun.
Oh, wow.
That he was even incorporating some of Alvaro's style whenever he's on the scene.
Comic Crack says, "Holy shit, Paulo bought a comic."
Yeah.
And Wilson says they're the Micro Men.
Yeah, they were debuting the comic, the book in the shop. They had a table and everything where they were talking for 45 minutes. Yeah, it's only 16 pages. They were asked if they wanted to stretch it and make it an actual graphic novel, but they thought Mario, the comic shop owner and the writers thought there was no point in doing that. This guy over here is the villain. He's patterned after a real publisher of a line of alternative comics.
Tit Goblin says I like that cartooning.
So the essentially is a comic where all the Portuguese cartoonists are making fun of themselves and other ones. No problem. Everyone took it in stride.
Chris, do you go to Mocha Fest?
I've been there a few times, but I haven't been there in like 10 years, 15 years, maybe.
Right. Because I will be there this year because Ed Murr convinced Pratt to get a table at Mocha Fest. So I'll be at Mocha Fest representing Pratt. And I've just seen who else is going to. So if you want to show up, I'll be there. This year's not till March. Mocha Fest is what? The Museum of Comics and Cartoon Art?
Yeah.
And it's like a small press kind of festival in Manhattan. I don't even know where in Manhattan. Somewhere downtown, right? Or
I want to say like 24th Street. There's like an armory. That last time I went to it, it was in the armory.
And I think the Society of Illustrators owns it now. Because the Museum of Comics, it used to be its own thing, but I think the Society of Illustrators bought it and run the festival now. But I'll be there for the first time. I've always meant to go. Like Ed always goes, or goes a lot, but I've never been there. Microman were a toy line from 74 to 84 in Japan. Mego licensed the series and called them Micronauts from 76 to 1980. And the Marvel bullpen drove up the price on them in the late 90s when eBay first started.
So the ones you were buying, did they look anything like the ones I had?
The small one, I never bought them, but the small ones, I'd never seen those Micromen before. Baron Karza and the Time Lords, I recognized from the ads that were in the comic books.
So what were you guys buying in the bullpen?
Oh, those Micronauts that were in the ads. Like Dave Sharp was buying them. I forget who else. A bunch of the assist. Anybody who was around Dave Sharp's age, who was maybe a couple years younger than me, so they're probably around my age too.
Because the Baron Karza is huge. It's like this big.
I think there were smaller ones too.
Yeah.
But what it was it was when eBay first started in the late 90s. And everybody was buying all the stuff from their youth, of course. So there was probably 10 people at Marvel buying Micronauts. I forget who they all were, but they'd come in and show their Micronauts, talk about da-da-da-da-da. And then one day, like a couple months later, Dave was reading a toy magazine, because of course we used to get all the toy magazines. And they noted that there was an uptick in the price of all the Micronauts. And he's like, ooh, I think that's us. Because, they were paying pretty good prices for some of those Micronauts. Not outrageously expensive, but probably more than, now that they were available, because they could never get them before eBay. So it's like, ooh, I think that was us. I think we've been driving up the price of Micronauts. Back in the eBay days when you had to win an auction and then send a check to the auction person, and they had to put it in their bank, wait for the check to clear, and then send you the package. Hard to believe we used to live like that, huh? That's how it was done.
Had to get done somehow.
Yep. I bought stuff like that. And another comic I got this week, which has an AKA in it, Usagi Yojimbo, #1 from Dark Horse. And this actually has a legacy number on it.
Finally.
So it's Ice and Snow, part 1 of 5. And it's got Usagi UY number 270 on it, too.
Nice. So I guess somebody told Stan Sakai, if you count all of your comics as one series, you're about to beat Cerebus.
I'm sure that Dark Horse went, we want issue 300. But then I was like, I wonder what its official name is in the indicia. And this indicia, which is almost too small to read, the first line is also known as Usagi Yojimbo, Volume 5, Issue number 1, and Usagi Yojimbo 270. So I'm like, there's an AKA in the indicia, also known as.
I'm not sure that's legal, but okay. What's the Library of Congress going to archive it as?
I have no idea. But it's also known as... Oh, pardon me. Does say Usagi and Jimbo, Ice and Snow, number 1, September 2023. That's in bigger letters. Then, also known as Usagi Yojimbo, Volume 5, Issue 1, and Usagi Yojimbo 270. So I guess his official name is Usagi Yojimbo, Ice and Snow, number 1.
Yeah, they're going with fake legacy numbers as well. Yeah, no problem there.
Yeah.
But if you can count up all of the issues and it gets very nearly to number 300.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, if Marvel can create issues number 1000 that don't exist.
Yeah. He's actually put out 270 issues of Usagi Yojimbo himself too. Not with anyone else. I think he's got a letterer. Who's his letterer? Or is he lettering it? I don't know. He's doing the lettering too. Only Hi-Fi Color Design is doing the coloring now. But yeah, he's doing the penciling, inking, writing, lettering.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he's also lettering. He didn't use the color, so we would have somebody else do it.
Right. It's like, wow. Dogu Publishing. I think that's his publishing imprint at Dark Horse too. But excellent. Just like every other issue of Usagi Yojimbo, an excellent issue of Usagi Yojimbo. Chris, I picked up the first Encounter trade a few weeks ago. It's good stuff.
Thank you.
Cool. Ah, the old days of eBay. Money orders were better than checks. They were, but you had to go out and get a money order. It's like you couldn't do that from your house. You had to go to the post office.
Hey.
Other than the Ninja Turtles and toy cartoon cameos with him showing up in their comics, did anyone else write and draw Usagi Yojimbo comics? No. There's a benefit book where people did pinups of Usagi, but all 270 issues are Stan Sakai.
I feel like there was a backup recently that was chibi style that somebody else drew.
Yes, his daughter, was it? It may have been his daughter drawing that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, in a backup. You're right. I forgot about those chibi ones. His daughter does count as someone else, but I don't know how much so.
Well, also, if it's a backup, it's not.
Yeah,
you wouldn't say like, "Oh, somebody else did that issue." You just say
he has written, penciled, inked, and lettered all 270 issues. That is a lot of work. I hope he doesn't die at the drawing board like Joe Matt before he reaches 300. Were you a Joe Matt fan, Chris? Do you know him?
I feel like my only knowledge of him comes from you. Like I've heard you talk about him, maybe I've even read something that you gave me once. But
yeah, he died. I don't know if you see. He died a couple weeks ago.
I did see that,
which really made me sad because he was one of the defining cartoonists for me of the late 80s, early 90s. So I still haven't read the tributes to him from Seth, and that Fantagraphics published a bunch of tributes to him on their website. He has an assistant who is a young guy. Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm glad he's got someone helping him. Stan seems to be the nicest guy in comics. Me too. I'd like to meet him. Stan Sakai. Usagi. Yeah, he could use an assistant. That's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. Read any good comics lately, Chris?
Not really. No.
You still reading Savage Dragon in the proofreading chain?
Yeah. Still doing that. Let's see. I have some comics I still have to read that I haven't read yet that I need to read.
Mm-hmm. You've
I
got a
catch up
to be read pile.
I got a Fire Breather, couple issues of Fire Breather.
Okay.
Not Fire Breather, Fire Power.
Fire Power. Okay. I only read the first issue of that, I think.
I've seen it around, but I haven't read it.
Yeah.
I got this sitting
popular
here
among some circles. Mm-hmm.
Scrapper?
Is that a dog? Is that a cosmic powered dog?
If you love stories about the power of friendship, loyalty, and tenacity, then Scrapper is the comic for you. Follow the riveting adventures of Scrapper and Tank, the world's newest crime-fighting canine champions, as they seek to protect their domed city of New Verona from the evil known as Smite. This beautifully illustrated all-ages story is as kinetic and powerful as it is heartwarming and touching. That's a blurb from Jim Lee.
Ah. Now,
But
why
this
do you have
is
that one?
I have this because it is a local comic shop's exclusive variant cover,
Okay.
illustrated by our fellow former bullpenner Jacob Shabbat.
Oh, cool. Have you talked to Jacob lately? What's he up to besides illustrating Scrapper cover?
I feel like I talked to him 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
A little bit, caught up a little bit. I can't
Jacob
really give you a
Chabot
thorough
used to work
update.
with us in the bullpen. He drew a lot of issues of SpongeBob SquarePants. He drew the only good picture of what's his name, the Marshmallow Man, Stay Puft the Marshmallow Man on the internet. So you've learned nothing about what Jacob is up to. That's what we're.
I know. I mean, this is old news, but he did like tons of pages for. Is that Matt Groening cartoon they had on Netflix? Was it Disenchanted or something?
Oh, I don't know that one.
I don't know if that's the right.
I don't remember a Matt Groening cartoon on Netflix.
Maybe I have the wrong style in my head.
But he was doing pages for it?
But yeah, he did all these comics for it, and then they never published it.
Ah.
But it was like maybe like 2 years. He was just working on it.
Wow.
They had him. It was like an exclusive deal. It was like a really good deal. He got paid really well, and then they never.
That's good.
They never published it.
That's weird. I'd like to see him. Let's see. Interview with Seth on Kayfabe this Sunday. Joe is one of the guys they'll be talking about, apparently. I will have to check that out. The journal article is well worth a read. Yeah, I wanted to check it out. I just didn't have a chance yet. That cover is nice color. Cool. They like the doggy. SpongeBob. Such a great book. Yeah. That's it. Disenchanted. Okay. So you got the right cartoon. Disenchantment. Disenchantment. So it's Disenchanted or Disenchantment. One or the other. But that's what Jacob had been drawing for a couple of years. It's too bad they're not being published.
And he did something for Marvel, like which they call an Infinity comic.
Okay.
And
That's digital, right? I've seen
So I
that.
think it's digital. I think it's digital only.
Right. I've seen that
And
sort of label, but I
Yeah.
don't really know what they are. All right, we're caught up on Jacob. You talked to any of the other old gang?
Talk to Smitty pretty much every day
He's in the studio with you.
because he's in this studio here.
Smitty is the writer on Officer Clawsome. He's also a cartoonist. Has he drawn anything lately?
Let's see. The last thing he had published that he drew was the PB&J series for young readers.
Okay.
Like the vegetable, pea, blue jay, and bumblebee become friends. And I think that did pretty well. I think there's 6 books in that series. And now he's working on something like he just finished the first volume of a new series, but I don't know if it's been announced officially, so I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything about it.
Okay.
And
you keep quiet.
And he just got approved on another series that he's going to be writing, which I also can't. I don't think I should be saying anything about. So he's got a lot of work, but
that's good.
In due time.
But the marketing department doesn't want anyone to talk about anything. Disenchantment is an American animated fantasy sitcom created by Matt Groening for Netflix. Chris got it all right. Smitty wrote a few issues of Loud House that I lettered a while back. Okay.
Also true. Was that the paper cuts?
Yeah,
if Wilson can type in, why can't he just be in? Is he because he's dealing with all that water that he was drowning in?
Dealing with all that water. He was on just before you were on, and he dropped off 2 or 3 times. So finally he was like, don't think I can be on.
Huh.
All that New York City flooding, though it isn't flooding near him locally, but...
Yeah, I got to say, he seemed to be taking it in good spirits, like being up to his neck in water.
I saw that TikTok too. That was pretty well done. Those effects TikTok has.
Fancy.
Yes. That is why he can't be. He can write in, but he can't be on. Yes.
What are you working on?
What am I working on? I was working on the Bad Idea digital stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but that's not like...
I've been working
What is Jared working on?
See that right there? I'll show it to you. Remember my duster with the painted cape?
Yes.
I got a new duster. So I'm working on painting the cape. Here, let me go big so you can see it.
That's awesome.
Still got some work to do on it. But last week, the color was all marker, color sketch stuff. This is actual paint. So when it goes on the duster, it'll be like this. And I think I'm going to go with the 2 eyes in front like I had on my last cape. I like the eyes on it.
Like Mysterio?
No, they're just like
Mysterio.
Circles with eyes in it.
Like Mysterio.
Yeah, kind of. Well, yeah, I guess so.
Like the Spider-Man villain Mysterio.
A dome rather than sort of like Mysterio.
But he has 2 eyes on his
Oh, that's right. He did. Yes, like Mysterio then, right? He had the 2 eyes on his shoulders.
Yeah. Acting like he didn't know he was stealing Mysterio's whole gimmick.
I forgot I stole Mysterio's eyes. But I still remember the one time I was walking with Ternard, another fellow bullpenner, down the street, and he just started laughing. And I was like, what are you laughing at? He's like, you're not seeing people look at you? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, people are walking down the street and they get a look at those 2 eyes and they just go. and look away and keep walking. I'm like, no, I never noticed.
Now,
So that's
like you always had the painted duster thing going,
right.
but you switched it up a lot. Was that just like you get a new duster and
No, I
save
had
it, or did you
two.
wash it off?
I only had two paintings. So I had two. I made my own cape. I got a piece of canvas. I cut it. I sewed it. I put snaps on it. So I had two paintings on the duster that I would swap on and off. That's what it was.
Okay.
It wasn't that many. So, but yeah, I wore the first one for years, and then said I want another one, and put the other one on, and then we'd switch them off every so often, just for the heck of it. But I think with this one, I'm even going to do something with the cuffs and the cuff of the duster. I'm going to do some drip painting on that just to get some decorative elements on it. Huh. Yes, paper cuts. Would you paint your whole jacket if time was infinite? I might. just like in Osborne, Green Goblin. Matter of fact, I'm going to I have a painted zoot suit too that I used to wear for Halloween when I'd go down to the village. I like in the early 2000s, I'd go down to the Halloween parade in the East Village. Though I wouldn't actually go to the parade, I'd go to around the parade because it was much less crowded, and I would take some street photos. And eventually I said to myself, I should have a costume to wear this. So I decided I was going to get a zoot suit, which I think I got off of eBay. It was an Italian zoot suit. Cost about $150. So it wasn't like a costume zoot suit for $40. It was like a real suit. And every year I painted more stuff on it. So for about I think it was like 3 or 4 years, I just kept adding stuff to the zoot suit until I finally stopped going to that thing. But I'm finally going to wear it again because I'll be teaching on a Tuesday, and Halloween's on a Tuesday. I'm going to wear my zoot suit into the city again. Finally, if you want to see that one, hold on, I'll go get it.
I've got to get some crazy clothes just so I can wear them. Then I can take a trip to
Here we go. Let's get it big again. Here's the zoot suit. We've got a couple of mod men with big eye heads. On the sleeves, let's see, this side we got a lightning bolt and a spiral. We've got flames and purple and yellow down there. Let's see, this side has got the hand with the nail sticking in it. This is the giant eye I had on the shoulders. So this is the eye that was on the shoulders. We've got flames down the bottom of the zoot suit. And, let's see. I colored the, yellow on the edge there. I colored all the buttons yellow. And I think on the bottom of the pants is also flames. Let's see if I can show them. Barely. They got flames and purple on the bottom of the pants, just like the bottom of the cuffs, only a little bigger. So this is what I used to wear down to the parade. Now I'll wear it commuting in and teaching. So
do you have a hat to go with the suit?
I actually wore my let's see. I think I wore my grandfather's beaver hat, except I put cards in it. This is just that had the eyes on them. So like I'd stick these in the band. This is just one of my art cards, but I have ones with eyes like this on. So I'd have eyes. I think I'd put them in the side of my head. I'd have the eyes.
So did you get any feedback on this stuff, like in the streets? I think it looks really cool. But you
What was
you
that,
also look
Chris?
like you'd be the host of like a circus or a fantasy TV show or something, or like
There's a very Ringmaster Circus of Crime vibe to it.
yeah. Anybody ever stop you on the street, be like, "Hey, what's your deal, man?"
No, not usually. It was Halloween, so.
Yeah, over here, people would just assume you're a hobo.
But people liked it.
Well,
I mean,
according to Tenard, maybe you're just not being observant enough.
that could be it too. I did have a woman hit on me wearing that I didn't notice until afterwards. Because I get hit on so rarely in what I'm just a weirdo artist. But it was like, I think Bunch was with me. We were getting ready to go down, and this
So
woman came up.
did Bunch tell you after the fact, like, "Hey"?
No, he didn't. I just figured it out myself, half an hour later. Came up to me, talked to me briefly, and gave me a candy because it was Halloween, which never happens. And then she went, and then she went away or whatever. And I was like, hey, I think she was hitting on me.
Well, here's the thing, like, there's no way to know.
Yeah. But like, strange women don't ever talk to me.
But that
That's
could be easily written
like,
off. That could be easily written off, though, as like, "Oh no, she's just being friendly.
Right.
She's
But
Halloween.
that's
She's handing candy out. She
yeah.
saw that
It's
you're like
Halloween. She's
dressed up
exactly.
silly,
That's
and
why
she's like, "Oh, hey, that guy looks interesting. Whatever."
Yeah.
There's no way to know.
Like,
There's no way to know.
That just never happens to me. So I was like, oh, they may have been hitting on me. Does the duster have cultural subgroup significance? No. I'm the only one I know who's got a duster. If it does, it's not with my sub. It's with some other subgroup somewhere. I just like long coats. The last time I went to the parade, I went as Silent Bob. Take a bag with an extra shirt. That is a solid bit of advice. I like those eye people. Thanks. I was mixing two of my motifs with that one because I draw people like that, as Chris knows, called the mod men. This time I removed their heads and put eyes that I draw on top. So I was mixing up my motifs. But Sleepy, to tell you, not many people in New York City wear dusters. Matter of fact, I also have a Stetson to go with the duster. And there were times when I was taking the subway in New York, and I'd walk onto the subway, and people would part. And as Thomas once said, of course they're going to move away from you. A wizard cowboy walks onto the subway. You get out of the way. But yeah, not many dusters in New York. Jared, do you still have the Human Torch Mego outfit? I do not. I wish I had kept those, but I do not have them. I think I got rid of those pretty quickly, as a matter of fact. I went as one Halloween. Matter of fact, I think, who was it? My friend Rob told me that there's a book, there's an Amanda Connor book about the art of Amanda Connor. There might be a couple, I forget which one, that in the front has, photographs of Amanda Connor. And one of them is from Marvel Halloween of Amanda and me in my Mego Human Torch outfit. I've never gotten a copy of the book to see. I think I have the actual photo that someone gave me at another time. But I went Halloween one time. I didn't have a mask on, but I bought a red shirt and red pants. They were sweats, and I painted them like the Mego Human Torch with all the painted flame marks on. And that's what I went to as Halloween. Everybody inside the building got it. Everybody outside the building, not so much. I still can't figure out how you find all the time to be so prolific, Jared. Even drawing on your jackets over there is like a 28-hour day. It's called being a failure at everything else. That's how I find the time. Anything else in life, I'm a failure at. Making artwork, I'm a success. That pretty much. Though work did interrupt that jacket for the second Friday in a row. I wanted to finish it off today as much as I could because I'm getting near the end on it. Not quite there yet. I got some of the end parts, but I had to do bad idea stuff.
How much did you plan it out versus do you draw stuff like that just free form? Like do you start at one end and not?
With this one, I actually is planned out. But what I did was, here is the plan. So this is a printout of the drawing. But I wanted to spend my time painting it. And this is also how I can be so prolific, is because I've been prolific. I wanted to spend my time painting it, and I really wasn't as interested in drawing it, especially because it's such a weird shape to draw. So I went back into my vast archive of things I've drawn over the years. And I made a template of the cape size. And I took all of the various parts of different drawings and I composed it into that cape. And then I had the wrong size and had to put some more drawings in it. But it took me less time to do the drawing because most of it was already done. I was like, you know what? I've got so much drawing I haven't even some of the drawing is from finished pieces, some of the drawing is from unfinished pieces. I'm like, I can just compose with my own images that I've made over the years. So that's what I did with it. Those are all, images I've done over the last, 20 years. And I said, I want this piece here. I want that piece here.
No, you can't. I assume you can't just like lay the duster on top of that piece of paper on a light box.
No, I used graphite paper.
So you draw on one side and then transfer it.
Hold on. Sally's Artist Graphite Paper, which was like the box was designed in the 1960s and not changed since. And it's these big sheets. Let me get a little one. It's like, what is it? The sheets are like 18 by 24, but you cut them up if you need smaller ones. And this side is like wax tissue paper, and this side has graphite on it. So and I also had to, where is it? I had to use super opaque white fabric paint. And so the first thing I did was I primed where I was going to paint with the super opaque white fabric paint, because this wouldn't work if I didn't. And also fabric paint is pretty transparent, so I needed a white ground. Then I put this down, then I put the drawing over it, and I took a pencil and drew, and the graphite from here was transferred onto the drawing. And usually I can't do that on canvas. I have to, if I'm working on a painting, I can't use this stuff because the canvas is too bouncy. But if I'm doing a big drawing, like one of my 20 by 32 drawings, I use this stuff to transfer the drawing over, like on a piece of paper, and then I redraw it a little bit to clean it up. But yeah, I use this. I've been using this stuff for years. It's really good. So if small drawing, scan it in, blow it up, print it out the size you need it, use graphite paper to transfer it over.
Well, it looks dynamite.
Well, I thank you. Why, thank you. Have y'all ever been to Israel? Nope, I have not.
Nope.
I am not much of a traveler. That's another reason I'm prolific, is I like to stay home and make art rather than travel.
There was there's a guy who usually shows up in some YouTube channels, Bronco Bear. He was living in Israel in the last few years, but he contacted me saying he's trying to learn Portuguese because his new girlfriend's Brazilian, so he's moving there.
Moving to Brazil.
Yeah, I got a new girlfriend. I'm moving to Israel.
Yeah.
Not with that one anymore. We're going on the new girlfriend. She's Brazilian. I'm moving to Brazil.
Let's see, another comic I got this week of my 6. What's the furthest place from here? What number are we up to with this one? 14, by Boss and Rosenberg, with Atzmai Elahau, the letterer whose name I can never pronounce. This was a good issue. I really enjoyed this issue. It was strange. Once again, I don't know what the overall story is in this anymore. But in this issue, our one of our lead characters, I don't even know her name. What's her name? This is the story where we learn in the first issue that there's no adults in this world. It's all kids. And the kids all sort of adopt these weird identities that have something to do with the old pre-adults leaving or whatever world. Like originally, like the characters all lived in a record store. So they were all like music-based people. There's the kid characters who are all like cop-based people. There are kid characters who are all like carnival-based people. And in this one, we learn that these are like Halloween-based people. So she's pregnant. She ends up with these Halloween-based people. And then I think she ingests some sort of drug. And the rest of this is her being on this trip where the Halloween-based people try bring her to these cemetery-based people. And I think the cemetery-based people were going to cook her and eat her. But she managed to escape. So this whole thing was her being on this like acid trip with these. She doesn't know what's real and what's not. And we get to visit with these, Halloween-based people and these cemetery-based people. Then at the end, she goes someplace else with, I think, are some adult town, because we get glimpses of these people called the strangers who look like adults, but I'm not sure if they are. So like the overall story is just completely murky. But this was a fun issue. Good storytelling, good artwork, and things happened. So I was like, I can't tell you what's going on in the overall story, but each individual issue is pretty good. But if you're an overall story guy, this isn't the comic for you. Because there are some people who are like, they didn't move the plot forward at all, which I understand. But that's not the book for you if you're... One of my first memories was my grandfather is making graphite paper. That same man had that crazy drafting machine ruler thing that you have, Jared. Yep, I remember you saying that. I'm the only other one who he knows who has this. Let's see. This half hatching machine. And your grandfather is the only one I know who had one too, which is this. You put this little ruler in here. You lock it down, and then there's a little dial that you twist that has 0 to half a centimeter. And every time you press this button, this moves down a millimeter, or 2 millimeters, so you make perfect parallel lines with it. It's an old drafting tool, but I use it all the time. I used to use it for lettering in the hand lettering days instead of an Ames lettering guide. And I use it on my big ink drawings to draw patterns and stuff. Like Tit Goblin said, I'm the only one besides his grandfather who he's seen have this. And I'm the only one I've ever seen. Your grandfather's the first person I've heard of who had one of these too. I bought it in the 90s. I can't even remember if I got it at a store in Manhattan. I think I did. I think I found it in some store in Manhattan, some art supply store. But I can't even remember. It's been so long. It's been such a long time. Think I should be good. What weird art supplies do you have, Chris? What's your oldest art supply? That pen? How long?
Just like the old-fashioned nibs.
Right. Have you had that holder since the 90s?
Yeah.
Is it still the same nib, or have you had to change it?
The nibs have changed, I think,
That's
over
what I
time.
figured.
Here's another one. But it's just that, like, the very idea of it is so old.
Right.
And I haven't I haven't used them in forever. I'm trying to think. Maybe, I think I used them on one of the more recent mini Marvel strips I did, because I decided to do it on paper. So I used them for lettering.
I was just reminded of. Let me show you this. Where is it? No, not that one. This one. And this one. Have you seen like those places online where you can buy like Photoshop brushes, Procreate brushes, textures for Photoshop or whatever, like True Grit Texture Supply is the one I get in my ads all the time. Where you get like Photoshop brushes where you can draw with Ben-Day dots kind of thing.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that. Yeah,
Well,
I've never used any of it.
Neither have I. I've always kind of wanted to try them out, but I've never wanted to blow the $40 on it. So just this, matter of fact, when was it? 8/23 and 24. I said to myself, I need some textures for Illustrator. Let me check out those True Grit Texture Supply textures. And I went and looked at them, and it was like, you know what? I can make better textures than these. So that's what I went and did. I spent a couple of afternoons making my own textures that I then scanned in and, used an Illustrator for. And I only needed 2 textures, but of course I filled the whole book and made, I think, 68 textures, because why not? But I made most of them with this brush right here. And this brush is from 1984. I bought it in Monticello, New York, when I was in my freshman year of college. And this is like it's a bamboo brush, they call it. And
Did that ever go to a point?
No, it's terrible. This is like. They must still have these in art supply. It's supposed to be like a Japanese or Chinese calligraphy brush, except there's
So
still
is it supposed to come to a point?
Yes, it was $2.20 in 1984, which still wasn't much for a brush in 1984. But it was one of those things, you're at the art store, you're like, oh, cool, a brush. I've never had a brush like that. You're a freshman. And this is the brush that scares so many art students from ever wanting to use a brush. Because it's supposed to, if you ever see a real good Japanese calligraphy brush, they're big like this, but you dip them in the ink or whatever, and they come to a point, and they can make beautiful calligraphy with it. This never in its life came to a point.
I don't even see how it could.
Ink or paint, and it's like this big clunky thing that especially a freshman art student can do nothing with. But for making these textures, it was great because it doesn't come. So, like, usually when you use a brush, matter of fact, this is actually a Japanese inkwell. And for calligraphy ink, it comes in a solid block. And you put some water down in this part, and then you grind the ink. You grind the inkstone into the water. And then, of course, you use your brush and you twirl it in here. I just like to twirl my brush in here. I don't need an inkstone or anything like that. I dip my brush in, when I'm inking, I dip my brush in my ink, and then I twirl it on here to bring it to a point. Because that's what you usually do when you use a brush. You either twirl it on a piece of paper, or I've been using a Japanese inkstone for the last, 5-10 years. But instead of trying to twirl this I'd fill it with ink and then just mash it down. So it goes like that, and then I'd make my textures. So I was like, there was no twirling, there was all mashing. And as long as you mash it down and into 40 points, it works real well. But I think this brush has scared more students off of brushes than any brushes, because they used to be in every art. Any random art store you'd go to would have these really cheap calligraphy brushes. I don't know if any calligraphy was ever done with them. I certainly couldn't. So that's among I actually still have a lot of the art supplies that I bought my freshman year of college.
Did the professors direct their students, though, to use that to make calligraphy projects?
No, never did. I bought this one on my own. But what happened was in between high school and college, the college sent me a supply list. List of art supplies you needed for your classes. I went to my local, Koenig's Art Emporium in the mall with my list. They got me everything on the list and ended up to like over $200. I remember that was like more than I'd ever spent in art supplies in my life. Cause I was a high school student, just graduated, never spent that much on art supplies. Got all the stuff on the list. First day of class, found out maybe 30 people in the class. I was the only one who had gone out and got everything on the list. And then the teacher said, they gave you a list? And he looked at the list and told us everything we didn't need on the list. I was like, oh, great. But then I remember buying this because I went with a couple of friends because they had no art supplies. So we had to go. I was in, the school was in Loch Sheldrake, New York. The closest art supply store was in Monticello, New York, Monticello, where the Monticello Raceway is, too. That's why you would have heard of it. So we had to go there because they all needed art supplies. I went along. I saw this brush and I bought it. But I still have like a few other things that I never use.
Then how would that brush scare people if they're not even using it?
Because because it's uncontrollable. Because you've never used a brush before.
Yeah, but I'm saying
first if brush you use and it's uncontrollable.
But when were they experiencing it?
Freshman year. Like I wasn't the only one. What it is it's so you go in. Like I bought this just because it was there. That's what most people I knew, like in freshman year of school, bought one of these just because it was there. They're like, "Ooh, an art brush, $2. I can afford this. I can get this." And then you try to use it, and it's like, ah. And it's also something you tried on your own too, which also scared you from brushes. That's a mini broom. You're right, it is. I like using dip pens on canvas when they catch and scrape and weave and spray ink in a cool way. That's interesting. That's the Ralph Steadman approach. Catch that ink on the canvas and throw it around. Good stuff. Let's see. The last comic I got for the week was another facsimile. Only a $3 facsimile. Flash 106. Was this the first issue of Flash? 105. Was this the first issue of Flash after his showcase return? Is that why they reprinted this?
No, that was 104. That may be the first appearance of Captain Cold, but why? Of Mirror Master.
First mirror is Master of Mirrors. Maybe it's the first Mirror Master. The fastest man alive, Conqueror from 8 million BC. I haven't even read this one yet. I just like looking through them. Nice printing once again. I just like that these are comic books again, rather than being, something in a collected edition. It's a comic book. I have fun looking through it as a comic book. I still couldn't buy. There's that. I think it's the first appearance of the Penguin Detective Comics facsimile that came out 2 weeks ago, but it's $8. I was just kind of like, I don't know if I want to spend $8 on that. That's probably why it's still there a week later. But yeah, picked up this facsimile. They're cool enough for $4. Maybe not $5 like that Micronauts, but I don't know why that one was $5. Have you ever picked up any of the facsimiles, Chris?
Occasionally when I see them in a quarter bin.
Okay. I still have my T-square from high school, a pencil sharpener from Marvel. Oldest tool is a 1950s True Point lead pencil pointer sharpener. Wow. I think I may have that same one because I have some really old stuff that my mother found for me at garage sales in the 80s. So it was old in the 80s, which means it was probably from the 50s. And I think I know that exact. Is it the one? The handheld one I have is younger. Is Wilson? Is it like a paperweight one? I have one that sits on the desk. It's like a paperweight. That's a lead pointer that goes all around. It's pretty big. It's like the bottom of it is like this big and weighted, and it's like a dome right there with a little thing you put the pencil in, and it goes.
What is the weirdest comic that you'd like to have as a facsimile?
The weirdest comic I'd like to have is the facsimile. Ooh, what was that one we were looking at in the Reed, Rip, and Slab that Paulo hated that I thought was cool, the cover? It was like a Tarzan issue from the 60s. Let me see. I think I still... I think I have it bookmarked or on my... I just remember Paulo really hated the cover. I was like, I kind of like that cover. It's goofy. Tarzan, Jungle Tales of Tarzan #1, 1964.
Okay.
I'd go for that one as a facsimile. I'd almost buy the original if it wasn't, $20. It's more a whimsical purchase than a one I gotta have. Someday, if I want to whimsically spend $20 on mycomicshop.com, I may get it, but other than that, I won't. But that would be a cool one, just because I remember. Why? What do you have in mind, Paulo?
That Bob Layton fill-in during Simonson's Thor run, where he has Hercules telling a tall tale of how he beat the crap out of Thor, but then the kid is talking to his major Thor fan. So he changes the story so Thor can win.
You could probably get the original of that one fairly.
You probably can get the original for $1.
That's the one. Old 1950s True Point lead. Yeah, that's the same one I have then. Okay, yeah. And it's definitely 1950s industrial design. So you can recognize that pretty easily. Though I did just get some Is it over there? I bought this off of Amazon on a whim. It's a pencil set. And it's funny, I was showing this to my friend Ed, and he bought one on the whim. I don't even think it was $20. It may have been like $13. And it's, oh my God, it's got a lot of clips holding it closed. And it comes with like 3 erasers up there. A whole bunch of different lead. These are 2.0. These are like lead pointer leads. Whoops. 2.0 millimeter leads. So they're pretty thick. And they go in, there's 3 of these pens that, there's the lead pointer lead right there. So this is 2 millimeters thick. So if you want it pointed, you have to point it yourself. But which you could drop into like these little lead pointers that we used to point things in. But it also has, I never realized, I used to have some of these teeny tiny little pencil sharpeners. And what you do is you stick this in this teeny tiny little pencil sharpener and turn, and it points the pencil. But it's like I never knew what these were really for before now. They're for these 2.0 pencils. It's like there was always one of these lying around somewhere, but no one ever used it. But I was like, oh, that's what those are for. But such a cool pencil set. I still haven't used it for anything. But it was cheap and cool, and I felt like getting one. I'm like, you know what? Even if I never use it for anything, it's still kind of cool. Good evening, Sequential Geek. 2.4 hours later. Damn.
Yeah, again. Oh, Sequential Geek asked in one of his in a reply in one of his videos if we ever talked about the new universe, because one of his latest videos has
more than once.
Yeah, but we never did something special specifically about the.
No, we never did anything in. I'm not a huge New Universe fan.
Yeah.
Starbrand was the only one I really liked. The rest were just cheesy 80s Marvel stuff to me.
Mm.
I'm not like Tim. Tim was at the right age for the New Universe. That's why he has a lot of nostalgia for the New Universe, because he was at the right age for it.
Yeah, I was 8 when they showed up here. The Brazilians published 2 magazines with the New Universe, with 4 stories in each of them, and they were headlined by Justice and Cyforce. I was never really impressed with any of the covers to want to buy one. Although I did read a couple because a friend of mine had them. And
I
they were
know,
okay,
right?
I guess.
Although we're on the same time every week. And look, Chris is with us tonight.
But Sequential Geek, if you want to read more about the New Universe from Jim Shooter's perspective, if his blog is still active, jimshooter.com.
There's a lot of good stuff on his blog. A lot of good stuff.
You just search, because he has a post explaining everything that happened with the New Universe and how they kept downgrading his budget for the whole launch, and that's why
Wilson's around the same age as Tim. They were both in on the start of the new. I was too old for. I was, when did what year did the New Universe start? 86.
Yeah, 86.
So I was 20. I was done with Marvel basically by then. Cool, Ramos Comics. I like Starbrand most of the beginning of DBS. Starbrand I thought was good. That was the one comic of the New Universe. The Shooter written, Ramita drawn Starbrand I liked. Cyforce was okay at first. Jim Shooter's blog, I just did find it recently. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on that blog. A lot of good history.
I kind of liked Spitfire's design because it was really clunky, but it worked in a more realistic way than Iron Man's slick armor, because Iron Man's armor moves without joints, and Spitfire was an actual armor with joints, and everything was tubes,
Yeah. By 86, I was pretty much totally indie, except for a few things here or there. So the new universe was not for me, except for Starbrand. I enjoyed that one. I was still, Marvel enough to check out the new universe, but
With everything you've just said about Starbrand, that makes you the biggest fan of the New Universe comics that I've ever met.
you've met Wilson. You've met Tim, at least virtually. They're actual fans of the new universe. But yeah, I know what you mean. I really like DP7. Kind of felt like cool X-Men, if you say so. The first 3 issues of Mark is insane. Merc is insane. It's worth a dollar bin dive to read how crazy the character was. He the one who could see how evil or not evil people were? Merc?
Wasn't that Night Mask?
I don't remember. Because
he went into the dreams.
1986. It happened just after Secret Wars 2. So to me, it was the universe the Beyonder made when he died. Oh, he tied it in himself. November 86. The rest were released mostly a derivative. Spitfire was cool. Yup. I just said that in my latest haul, man. Costa, the realistic take on superheroes in the modern days of the 80s. Yeah, that Starbrand was a realistic take on superheroes in there. And the technical drawings of stuff Spitfire was cool. Okay.
So I do have a Starbrand annual because my comic shop owner got it online, and I ended up buying it. And one thing that I liked was since Cam Connell didn't know how to spot where he was, he mostly flew by going over the roads.
And I remember Starbrand had to turn off his Starbrand in exercise because he was falling out of shape.
Yeah.
Because the Starbrand was doing all the heavy lifting for him. It wasn't his body. So he started getting falling out of shape. He's like, holy crap, I have to do some exercise.
Yeah. Did Goblin mention Merc? Merc had a great at the silliest ending because the character died in the penultimate issue, and he was dead throughout the entirety of the last one.
Next door, the DMZ. Don't know. This brush makes a better toy than a brush. I mean, it's got a good feel to the bamboo handle. The brush feels nice. Brush it against yourself. Definitely worth the $2 in 1984. and also Japanese brushes. I don't know why, but they have loops on the end. I know that because I bought these. I don't know where the set is. I bought these brush pen Japanese brushes, calligraphy brushes, and they even had the loop on the end, and they had some explanation why the loop was on the end too, but I don't remember it, and it didn't make sense to me. But there's also a loop on the end of.
You don't hang it from something?
I don't know. Maybe you do. Where's that brush set? Is it over here? Do I still have the explanation? Nope, don't know where it went. Sometime I buy art supplies. So I often buy more art supplies than I get to use, and sometimes, like, since I love trying out new art supplies, I buy them on a whim, and then never really go into them in depth. Sometimes I discover them like years later and start using them. But don't know where those brushes. There's some explanation why there's a loop. Yeah, so that you hang them, I guess. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. He was more like Crazy Punisher, and his ex-wife and kid hated him because he would pull guns on the kids' Little League team and stuff. That was cool, Osborne. Good point. Like, people that fly should be overweight, right? Yeah, that was Jim Shooter's point. So
I'm not sure. It's not so much as fly because the Starbrand gave him all the powers, but since you don't do any heavy lifting, if you keep eating, you're gonna go fat. Right. You're not spending any energy lifting up stuff.
Right. Like that, Starbrand really tried to take a sort of realistic approach to what would happen if you had superpowers, kind of thing.
Mhm.
That's what I love. I haven't read it since then, but I remember enjoying it. That was the one new universe I enjoyed.
And even Byrne kind of went with it, even though the whole point of him picking up Star Brand was just so he could blow up Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I never read any of that stuff. I was gone when
Not-
Shooter and Ramita Jr. were gone.
Yeah, but because there's one issue where starts wearing a superhero costume,
Huh.
and he goes to a comic book convention,
Huh.
and it's without this mess, nobody knows who I am, right? No, we are very easy to find out. You're speaking, so I can record your voice and find out where, and I can find out where you live. I have your body type, height, and I can tell your height and weight. So you have eye hole, so I can tell you're Caucasian. The color of your eyes are blue.
Well, we should wrap it up for the evening.
Mm-hmm.
To see one last. Yeah, man, that guy Gladiator that walked into the Soviet Union and got nuked. That was a crazy idea. And I guess there's some crazy stuff at the end of the new universe. That's for sure.
Hmm.
I wasn't there for any of it, though. All right, so you guys have a good week out there.
See ya.
And we will catch you next week. Say goodnight, Chris. Good night, Chris.
Good night, Chris.